Why are you spending so much time talking about shock dynos and double adjustable shocks and understanding what's going on with these shocks? A double adjustable shock is a double adjustable shock, right? Hey, welcome back to Kevin Wilson SBC. Yes, I am talking a lot about shock dyno graphs and understanding the differences between various shock manufacturers. Yes, I have recently signed up with Penske Racing Shocks to be a dealer and represent them and sell their shocks and give my customers an opportunity to purchase Penske Racing Shocks through me. However, that doesn't mean that I ignore all other shocks. And one of the things I want to make sure that I do on this channel is try to represent fairly what's happening. And with that in mind, there is a shock company that I am working with customers on more and more and more. And what I'm beginning to see is even with the 1,000 horsepower, 1,200, 1,500, 1,800 horsepower and more cars, I'm running into more and more trying to understand and help tune Viking performance shocks. So with the amount of Viking performance shocks that we have appearing in my world today, I felt it necessary to learn more about Viking shocks. In the past, I've worked a lot with Penske shocks, with Strange Engineering shocks, with QA1 shocks, the DDs and the Mod Series shocks. I've worked with AFCOs, I've worked with Mincer shocks, worked with Santuf shocks. I've seen a lot of different shocks out there on drag racing cars, and I have personally never ran a Viking performance shock on any of my vehicles. However, I have worked with a lot of customers recently who are having pretty good success with Viking shocks. I felt it time and necessary to go over the Viking performance shocks and some of the challenges I'm having with some of the race car drivers I'm working with, and hopefully this video can help you if you're making a decision to purchase Viking performance shocks. My goal of this video is to help educate you more so that you can make a more informed decision when you get on the phone with whoever you're going to order your shocks through. And another goal is if you currently own Viking performance shocks and you're struggling trying to get your car, your chassis tuned, then maybe it's because of some of the information I'm going to go over here. You might need to get back with Viking Performance or with another company who services their shocks. And that company is called Afterworks. You can find them in the description below on my video. I'll have a link to their Facebook page. Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Leave me comments. Give me a thumbs up on the video. I'm pretty sure this one's going to help you guys. Even if you're not running Viking Performance shocks, please take a minute to understand this and apply it to your shocks. Let's talk about Viking performance shocks, and this video is going to focus on drag racing. There are characteristics to each shock that makes it a better fit for drag racing or round track, etc. There are differences. Let me give a special shout out to Mike at Viking Performance. He is in engineering and sales. He has had multiple email exchanges with me. I've talked to Viking a good bit here lately. And I just want to say I appreciate how transparent they've been and how much information they're giving me to help my subscribers and those who may watch this video. So thank you, Mike, for all the patience you've exhibited to me. Viking provides you on their website with an application guide, and you can actually get a lot of information. As a matter of fact, everything I'm going over with you today originated from that and my conversations with Mike directly at Viking Performance. The interesting challenge I'm having is when I work with some of my subscribers or those who have subscribed to my remote suspension tuning services, and I'll ask them, what type of shock are you running? Can you give me details on your shock? Let's talk about where your current settings are, etc. And one of the things I really am after is, what's the exact part number of your shock? So who makes your shock and what's the exact part number? And based on that information, I can have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Now, I'm making some assumptions here. I'm assuming your shocks are in good working order. I'm assuming they haven't leaked oil. I'm assuming that they have not leaked out any nitrogen. I have to assume and talk with each user about these things. Shocks have items that wear out in them. Shocks have items that wear out in them. And the general rule of thumb is when you freshen up your motor or you're freshening up your drivetrain, you should consider having your shocks checked and having them dynoed, having them verified that they are still operating as you intend them to operate. One of the things that I'm finding out when it comes to Viking shocks is they will tell me I'm running Viking double adjustable shocks. And I'll ask, well, which Viking double adjustable shock? And then it goes quiet. Let's talk about why I'm asking that question. And I'm going to share this stuff on the screen with you, but if you look at this on the screen now, you will see that on page 2 of their document, they give you a chart that talks you through how to make a decision on which shock you should purchase from them. And today, I'm going to focus on the competition use only shock. I am running into many people that have 1,000 to 1,800 horsepower at the rear wheels who are running Warrior shocks on a drag strip with radial prep, and they're trying to get that Warrior shock to work with 1,500 horsepower on a trans brake and control that car all the way through the paces. I want to give you some information that Mike shared with me, and Viking would share this information with you straight up as well. But what they are talking about is the Crusader shock has a digressive compression curve, digression valving on the compression side, but it has a user revalvable rebound. According to Mike, you can buy a revalve kit for $20 and you can revalve the rebound side of the Crusader double adjustable shocks. And it's as simple as changing out a needle and seat, much like a needle and seat in a carburetor. These are twin tube shocks, and all of their valving is down in the area where your compression and rebound knobs are. So what they're trying to demonstrate here is as your car grows in power, as you begin to increasingly put more power down and you begin to understand your car, you can have the Crusader shocks and they can grow with you. Let's go into page 6 of the document. And on this page, I want to walk through the valving that Viking Performance discusses on the front end of a vehicle. So let's think about the front end of your drag car, and these can apply differently to your horsepower levels and whether you're running radials or slicks, and sometimes the radial and slick area gets very gray. The very first thing you see on the Crusader rebound valving. This is why it's so important when I'm working with you for you to understand if you have Viking Performance Crusaders, double adjustables, I need to know which valving do you have in your double adjustable shocks. Just telling me they're Viking double adjustable shocks does nothing to help me. I need to know which one you got. And if you don't know which valving you got, on the top of your shock, very close to where the shaft is meeting the sealing area of the shock, there is a serial number on your Viking Performance shocks. You can call Viking Performance, give them that serial number or give it to me, and then from that serial number, I can determine what rebound valving was installed in your shock. Now, depending on the age of that shock and how that shock has been used, or if the shock has been damaged, or if it's been in a collision or something, we may have to talk about that. But these are at least what Viking Performance says you should be close to expecting if you have one of these valvings in your Viking Performance shock and your shock is in good working condition. The very first valving that they show you is the front easy up. And what I would recommend is if you're a bracket racer and you're less than 700 horsepower, you've got a small block car or whatever, and you're just out bracket racing. To me, this easy up is going to very much mimic what we used to run as the 9010 shock. It's going to give you some adjustability and clicks. It's going to allow the front end to come up very easily and quickly, and it's going to allow that weight to transfer to the back. And ideally, you're going to be able to get better traction with that. Now, as you go up in horsepower, and especially for the radial guys out there, and you're trying to put as much power that you can without getting the radial wheel speed up, you're trying to dead hook that radial. One of the things you're going to have a challenge with is front end rise. And, even with a drag car with slicks, you're trying to not get the front wheels off the ground excessively. I fight that with the 48 Ford. And the bad thing about that is the wheelies are cool for the fans. It makes great pictures, but wheelies don't win races. It's very hard to steer the front end of that car if the tires are off the ground. And really at that point, you're wasting a lot of energy and you're putting a lot more weight on the rear of the car, probably standing up on the bumper or really hitting the wheelie bars hard. There's going to be times where you don't want that front end coming up hard. And you can use limiters and different things like that, mechanical or chains or straps or whatever. But the greater thing would be to have a shock that could control how much front end rise is happening. And if you go and look at the K rebound option, this is actually the rebound option I'm considering for the front of the 48 Ford that has a G-body front end. I'm heavily considering a set of Viking Crusader shocks that have the K valving. So let's talk about that. Looking at this K rebound setting, we could be on a no prep or a street type event where we need all of the weight transfer we can get, much like the easy up rebound. So on the K rebound valving, if you run on the softer side, 1, 2, 3 clicks, then what they're demonstrating here is, according to this valving, the front end will come up very easily. Now, let's say that same vehicle, you're going to be taking, that's a Friday night, you're out at a no prep, very slippery track, and you're trying to get the front end up and get that weight transferred. But the very next day, you're going to be putting a set of radial tires on the back and going to a radial prepped event. Well, at a radial prepped event, you're going to want to control how fast that front end comes up. On this K rebound, you can start adding clicks, and you can see that you quickly start getting to the point, according to these graphs, where the front end is going to require large amounts of force to come up. And I mean, if you went full tight on this tie down, let's say you went full tight on the Viking rebound tie down knob. According to this, you're at 1,600 pounds of clamp force right before 2 inches a second. That's pretty significant valving right there. I mean, for the most part, what they're telling you is it's as if you have tied the front end down. So for those of us who are running chains or straps to limit the amount of travel, if we change that so that there was no travel, so when the front chassis came up, that there was no gap between the chassis and the front wheel, that anytime the chassis lifted, the front came off the ground like a solid mount axle. So think about, like, my Altered used to have a solid mount axle. And when the chassis came up, the front wheels came with it. They were tied together. So this tie down, if you went full click on this K rebound valving, it's as if you have tied the chassis and the wheels together. That's how tight, and that's what they're trying to demonstrate here. There are times where if you look at the K rebound and the P rebound option, there are times where you may go, wow, that looks very similar. And I actually reached out to Mike about this very question. I was asking him, the K and the P rebounds look very similar, and so does the T. The T as in Tom, P as in Paul, K as in Kevin Wilson SBC. So if you look at the K, the P, and the T, those look very similar. Now, let's ignore the T rebound for right now. I would say that if the K doesn't do what you need to do, then let's talk about the P rebound option. And what Mike is telling me here is on the P rebound option, he says this is usually for a high horsepower radial application that needs a firm tie down front valving. And it's also good for a higher horsepower double wishbone front suspension where front end motion ratio is 70% or less. So if you in one of those scenarios and the K rebound is not enough for you, you can go to the P rebound option on the front of your car, and that gives you a more aggressive rebound valving to control that front end rise. The T rebound, just remember, that is extreme. That is the most extreme rebound valving that you can get. And if you have to go there, it's probably worth us talking about what else is going on. Let's try to understand before you jump to T rebound. Let's understand why K or P was not able to solve what was happening for you. So that's interesting. In the middle are the rear valving options that they go over, and they make it very simple. Less than 600 horsepower or big tire, greater than 600 horsepower or small tire. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all that, and here's why. I am a big tire car, and I would not elect to run the J rebound valving with my big tire 48 Ford because of how nose heavy my car is and how high the center of gravity is. Even though I'm below the anti-squat line, my car still wants to separate because of the relationship of the instant center height to the center of gravity. And with the amount of separation I'm experiencing on the rear of the 48 Ford, and I was going to buy a rear Viking performance shock for the 48 Ford, I would be going with the M rebound curve to get better control of that separation than what I have in the J rebound. Generally, drag cars have a much lower center of gravity than my 48 Ford, especially on a big tire slick. So the four link bars are acting a little differently on those cars than my car. And what I'm doing now with the custom valve Penske shocks is I'm running valving that's going to give me much more extension rebound control on my shocks so that I'm not crushing the sidewall. Now let's change gears. Let's go to page 7 and let's look at the options we have for the compression side of the double adjustable shocks. Generally here, what you have, and the documentation tells you, is that the A compression rebound is your basic digressive curve. And you'll see a lot of this type of a curve on the compression side of a lot of drag cars. The compression side is, if you can control the rebound side of your shock, then the compression side normally doesn't require as much clamp force most every time. It's not going to require drag racing now. It's not going to require as much clamp force if you can control what's happening on the extension side. You can also choose these same compression valvings for the front or the rear of the car. So the application is very important. Let's talk about that. I'm looking at a set of Viking Performance shocks for the front of the 48 Fords, what I said a few minutes ago. And I told you I was looking at the K rebound option. For me, I'm looking at the R compression valving for the 48 Ford. And what you see happening here is you have the A compression maxes out a little over 200 pounds of clamp force on the compression stroke at 6 inches a second, where the R compression valving at 6 inches a second is around 450 pounds of clamp force. The 48 Ford is almost 2,000 pounds on the nose, and it does pull the front wheels off the ground. Now, I'm trying to control how far it pulls the front wheels off the ground. I could put bar angles in the 48 Ford, and that would almost be require a radial type tire to get my intersect or my instant center to be more in line with the center of gravity, because pretty much to keep the front end down, you have to have the instant center on the rear overcoming the center of gravity of the car, so that it is truly trying to push the front end of the car down while the four link bars are picking the rear of the chassis up. But I'm a big tire slick car. I'm not out running the 48 Ford on radial tires or at radial events. I would be looking at the R compression valving, so that when I can get the front end up and get the front end separated, and it starts to bring the front wheels down, I don't want it just collapsing the shock or collapsing the spring, because that's just upsetting the rear end. You're moving weight to the front of the car way too fast, and very fast weight shifts as the front end, as you shift weight to the front of the car. If you're shifting weight too quickly, generally you're going to upset the rear of the car, which is where your traction is. So the idea is to bring the front end up in a controlled fashion. Don't top the shock out right away, because once you top a shock out, there's nowhere for it to control but back down. So you want to bring the front up and control it, and I want to use the compression valving to not let the shock compress so fast. What I don't want to happen is the front end comes up, and then as I get on top of the slick, the front end crashes back down. You're losing ET, you're upsetting the rear end, you're not applying the right amount of traction when you do that. So the thought is, bring the front end up, but don't let it just come crashing down. Allow it to settle down as the physics lets it settle down. That's why I would be looking at the R compression option that they talk about here. Now, if I'm talking about the rear of a car, then I'm going to probably be looking at the A compression option, or I could go with the R compression option if I need more compression control for a radial rear end, where I'm trying to extend that rear chassis and use the compression to hold the radial to the track. Then I might be looking at the R compression valving. The G is more for handling applications, and I understand what's happening on the G compression valving. I just don't see it being as applicable in drag racing. So that's why I'm talking more about the A and the R compression valving. This is some very good information, and what I can't tell you though is I have never taken a Viking shock from Viking Performance brand new and had it dynoed. Now Mike told me they dyno every shock before it leaves their shop, and I'm sure if you asked to have a copy of that dyno, I'm sure they would probably work with you and getting you that. But what he said is they focus on repeatability. Their goal is and their focus is, when they build a shock with the R compression valving and the K rebound valving, that when it leaves their facilities and comes to you, it is matching what these graphs are showing you. And at this point, I don't have a reason to say anything else. I've not ever tested these shocks. I very well may run these shocks on the front of the 48 Ford. I haven't made that decision yet. We'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully this made a little sense if you are a Viking shock owner, or if you're not a Viking shock owner, or if you're considering going to buy Viking shocks. Let me reiterate, I am not a Viking shock dealer. I am not a Viking shock service. I have never ran any of their shocks. So they did not give me money for this video. They did not sponsor this video. This is me simply trying to help the drag racing community understand more about Viking shocks and the options available to you. If you are asking for help and you do not know what valving is in your shock, it doesn't help anybody for you to go, well, this is what's happening, and I'm at 12 clicks of rebound and 6 clicks of compression. That doesn't do anything for me if I don't know what valving you at least have started with. if I understand what valving you have and you show me a video of your car and we understand and can see what's happening, I understand your corner weights, I understand your ride height, I understand your ladder bar or four link or whatever suspension you're running, and you're trying to correct one thing or the other, then if you know this valving and you understand where your clicks are, now we can start making decisions based on data. I see a lot of guys on Facebook and various forums and various groups talk about put 2 clicks in, add 4 clicks in, you take 3 clicks out. You know, I understand what they're trying to do. In essence, what they're trying to help the user with is you need to go tighter on your rebound, or you need to go tighter on your compression. So when they tell you add clicks in, do this, really what they're trying to guide people in is go softer, go tighter. However, if you don't know the valving, you know, you're kind of just giving general guidance and direction. In my case with the 48 Ford, I had 18 clicks of rebound in the QA1 DD501s, and even foot brake in the car, I was completely extending the shock and crushing the sidewall of the slick. And you know, I finally got on the phone with QA1 and understood that the QA1 DD501s were not revalvable. You can't revalve them, or they will not. QA1 will not revalve them. I didn't go out trying to find some other third-party person to revalve them. At that point, they pretty much told me, hey Kevin, you should have went with the Mod Series shocks. And you know, that's on me. However, I made the decision to go with the Penske shocks, and I don't regret that decision at all. I'm getting ready to take the car out and go testing, so we will find out very soon. But I'm pretty confident those Penske shocks are going to work for me. I may have to make some changes, or we may have to adjust the valving a little bit, but I'll work with Jerry at Penske Shocks on that, and we'll make that happen. I think I'm going to be very happy with those. Could I have bought a pair of Viking Crusader shocks for the rear of the 48 Ford to do the same thing? I don't know. According to Mike and according to the literature, it looks like they offer the flexibility to do very similar to what we've done, but with a little different type of curve. Please take the time to understand your Viking shocks. Hopefully this video has helped demonstrate some of that data to you. This is stuff that's available to you. I don't have any secret data. I don't have any inroads where I got information that you could not get. I simply just took the time to self-study these shocks because so many of my customers and subscribers are running Viking Performance shocks. I needed to know more about them and what I'm helping people do. Remember, whether you're running Viking Performance shocks, AFCO shocks, Penske shocks, Strange Engineering shocks, QA1 shocks, Santuff shocks, Menser Performance shocks, Kinetic Engineering shocks, I don't care what shock you're running, we're trying to do 3 things. We're trying to go fast, we're trying to go straight, and we're trying to be safe.